You've talked a lot about the flexibility of states as being preeminent. So I want to go back to Indiana, to Bloomington in particular, and look at the Lighthouse Christian Academy. The Lighthouse Christian Academy currently receives over $665,000 in state vouchers for students to attend their school. They are also clear in their handbook and their guidance that if you are from a family where there is homosexual or bisexual activity, their word, not mine, or practicing alternate gender identity, you may be denied admissions. If this school, which obviously is approved to discriminate against LGBT students in Indiana, if Indiana applies for this federal funding, will you stand up that this school be open to all students?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for your question with regard broadly to school choice. And
it's actually kind of narrow because I have 1 minute left.
And I would like to refer back to your question about the comment about those
I'm sure
who are
you would.
resistant
I
to
want to ask particularly, is there a line for you on state flexibility? You are the backstop for students in their right to access a quality education. Would you, in this case, say, we are going to overrule and you cannot discriminate, whether it be on sexual orientation, race, special needs, in our voucher programs? Will that be a guarantee from you for our students?
For states who have programs that allow for parents to make choices, they set up the rules around that.
So that's a no. Do you see any circumstance where the Federal Department of Education under your leadership would say that a school was not qualified? What if they said, we are not accepting African American students, but that was okay with the state? Does the state trump? Do you see any situation where you would step in?
Well, again, I think the Office of Civil Rights and our Title IX protections are broadly applicable across the board. But when it comes to parents making choices on behalf of their students...
This isn't about parents making choices. This is about use of federal dollars. Is there any situation, would you say to Indiana, that school cannot discriminate against LGBT students if you want to receive federal dollars? Or would you say the state has the flexibility in this situation?
I believe states
yes or no?
Continue to have flexibility in putting together their programs.
So if I understand your testimony, I want to make sure I get this right. There is no situation of discrimination or exclusion that if a state approved it for its voucher program, that you would step in and say, that's not how we're going to use our federal dollars. There's no situation if the state approved it that you would put the state flexibility over our students. Is that your testimony?
I think a hypothetical in this case
it's not a hypothetical. This is a real school applying for that receives dollars.
Time has expired, but I'm going to allow the secretary to answer.
I go back to the bottom line is we believe that parents are the best equipped to make choices for their children's schooling and education decisions, and too many children today are trapped in schools that don't work for them. We have to do something different. We have to do something different than continuing a top-down, one-size-fits-all approach. And that is the focus, and states and local communities are best equipped to make these decisions and frameworks on behalf of their
I am shocked that you cannot come up with one example of discrimination that you would stand up for students.
National Public Radio did a story on the Milwaukee voucher program. Quote, over the years, much of the research found test scores flat, lower in some cases or slightly improved in others. Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, quote, on average, students in Milwaukee's private school voucher program still performed lower than students in the city's traditional public school system. Again, Milwaukee Journal, another article, Right Step Inc., I don't know if you're familiar with that school, a taxpayer-funded voucher school in Milwaukee. They're being sued by parents right now. Their reports indicate that only 7% of their students tested at English language proficiency and 0% in math. So this is our public dollars going to these schools. I just would ask you, would you send your kids to a school where they have 93% of the students aren't English proficient and 0% are math proficient?
Would I? Congressman, thank you for the question, and I'm really glad to hear you're from Wisconsin and you've had some of the experiences in Wisconsin. I was just recalling the history of the program in Wisconsin.
Since I only have 5 minutes, I
know,
appreciate
but
that, but if we could
I want to
try to
remind
answer it.
you
Thank
that
you.
Polly Williams, a Democrat city councilwoman, was the one who first introduced the Milwaukee
And who
program.
now says it's not lived
And
up to
who's
its
no
promise.
longer living.
Right, but before she passed away, said it does not live up to its
341
promise. You're familiar with
students
that, right?
And now 28,000 students in
She
the
said it didn't live
city
up
of
to the
Milwaukee.
promise of what the creation was. But the question is, would you send your children to a school with 93%
Today,
not proficient in
28,000 students in the
Okay.
city of
So
Milwaukee
I guess you're
are
not going to
being
answer
sent
that
there
question
by
either.
their
So let me, if I
parents.
can then, Madam Chair, if I can take my time back, if you're not going to answer the question, let me ask a different question that you might be willing to answer. So the last expansion in Wisconsin of this program, 75% of the kids, the parents who got this money, their kids already attended the school. And 2/3 of the money that went in the tax vouchers to the folks who received this were making more than $100,000. So largely, this is tax policy. This isn't education policy. This is making sure people who are already attending these schools. Do you think that your federal program will support this sort of thing? So it's not to encourage new outlets in education. It's simply to give money to people who already attend those schools?
Well, I really applaud Milwaukee for empowering parents to make the decisions that they think are right for their students and their children. And I go back to what I said earlier about the fact that I think we need to shift our
So will the
conversation.
federal program, I guess, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, is under what you're doing, there's 20 programs zeroed out from arts to foreign language, mental health, Special Olympics, that are zeroed out under the budget proposal, but you've got new dollars for this failed experiment that I can tell you, after 14 years in the legislature, we've had these dismal results. My question is, will the path of this new dollars you're putting in for the federal government go down the failed path in Wisconsin? It's going to people who already attend the schools. So there's nothing new about education. This is tax policy. It should be for the Ways and Means Committee. Is that the intention of the new program expansion that you have?
I know the 28,000 students that are attending schools by the choice of their parents in Milwaukee. That is a success for those students because their
So
parents
are you going
have
to hold
decided.
any accountability?
Their parents
for
have
example,
decided that's the right
Yeah.
place for their children.
Madam
to
Secretary,
be.
seriously, you're not answering the question, so let me try one more. I've got 40
I would
seconds. Maybe
advise
my
the gentleman,
trifecta.
Please give her an opportunity to answer the question.
But she's answering a different question that I'm asking, and I guess, at some
Please
point,
allow
I
her
have
to
5
finish her
minutes.
answer.
Sure. So will you have any accountability standards for these schools? So when we first started the program in Wisconsin, money went to someone who started a school, who said he could read a book by putting his hand on it. And people bought Cadillacs with the dollars they got in the voucher program. Are you going to have accountability standards in the programs that you're offering new dollars to at the federal level?
Wisconsin and all of the states in the country are putting their ESSA plans together right now. And they are going to decide what kind of flexibility they're going to allow. They have more freedom than ever because of the ESSA legislation to be creative and innovative. And our conversation needs to shift from talking about schools and buildings and institutions to what is right for individual students.
So I tried. I gave you 20 seconds. Will you have accountability standards was the question.
There are accountability standards. The states are required to have
Are
accountability
you going to
standards.
with the federal dollars was the question.
That is part of the ESSA
accountability
legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You are the backstop for students in their right to access a quality education. Would you, in this case, say, we are going to overrule and you cannot discriminate, whether it be on sexual orientation, race, special needs, in our voucher programs? Will that be a guarantee from you for our students?
For states who have programs that allow for parents to make choices, they set up the rules around that.
So that's a
And
no.
that-
There's no situation, if the state approved it, that you would put the state flexibility over our students. Is that your testimony?
I think a hypothetical in this case is.
It's not a
appropriate.
hypothetical. This is a real school applying for,
Lady,
that receives
Your lady's time
dollars.
has expired, but I'm going to allow the secretary to answer.
I go back to the bottom line is we believe that parents are the best equipped to make choices for their children's schooling and education decisions, and too many children today are trapped in schools that don't work for them. We have to do something different. We have to do something different than continuing a top-down, one-size-fits-all approach. And that is the focus, and states and local communities are best equipped to make these decisions and frameworks on behalf of their
I am shocked that you cannot come up with one example of discrimination that you would stand up for students.
Summer